Ashley Reeves was a high school girl who lived in Millstadt Village in Illinois with her parents and younger sister Casey. By all accounts, Ashley was a funny, bright, and excellent student with a steady boyfriend of 2 years, Jeremy Smith. On Thursday afternoon, April 27th, 2006, Ashley left her parents' home for a job interview 20 minutes away. She had also made plans to go play basketball at the park after the job interview, and she would be home by her 10 p.m. curfew. Ashley took a change of clothes for the park and left the home at 3:30 p.m. in her boyfriend's SUV, which she had borrowed for the day for the job interview. Later that evening, her curfew had come and gone, and Ashley was nowhere to be found. Ashley's mother, Michelle, asked Casey if she had heard from her sister, and Casey responded she had not heard from Ashley all day. By now, Ashley's parents and her sister are worried. Michelle and Casey call Ashley several times and send multiple text messages with no response from Ashley, which was very unusual. Michelle is now terrified and has a feeling in her gut that keeps nagging at her, telling her there's something very wrong, so she picks up the phone and calls the St. Clair County Sheriff's Office to report her daughter missing. At first, the officers tried to call Michelle and told her that Ashley was likely out with some friends and had lost track of time. However, 8 hours later, the police found Jeremy's SUV abandoned in Latterman Park, which was 15 minutes away from her parents' home. Inside the SUV, police would discover the bag Ashley had taken with her containing a change of clothes for basketball. Now detectives are concerned and realize this was not a typical case of a rebellious teenager testing the limits of her strict 10 p.m. curfew. This was a missing persons case, and they needed to act quickly as time was of the essence. Their top suspect was her boyfriend, Jeremy. Detectives brought him in for questioning. However, as the interrogation progressed, detectives knew Jeremy was not involved in Ashley's disappearance. He seemed to genuinely care for her, did not know what was going on, and he was out of town the night Ashley went missing. During the questioning of Jeremy Smith, he says that after her interview, she was going to play some basketball at Latterman Park. Detectives wondered why she would go to a park so far away from home when there was a park in her neighborhood, unless she was meeting someone. While detectives were busy with questioning Ashley's boyfriend, her friends, and anyone else of interest, her mother, Michelle, called the phone company to get access to her daughter's phone records. Michelle combed through all incoming and outgoing calls and noticed there were multiple phone calls from one specific number. Michelle picked up the phone and called that number. On the other side of the phone, a man answered. That man was Sam Shelton. Back in 2001, Ashley had a teacher named Sam Shelton. She was in the 7th grade. They were again reconnected 5 years later in February of 2006. Ashley was now a junior in high school. Sam Shelton was a driver's ed and physical ed teacher and was an aspiring professional wrestler who called himself the teacher. Michelle asked the then 26-year-old Sam Shelton if he had seen or heard from Ashley. He said no and hung up before Michelle could ask him why he had called her teenage daughter so much. One of the detectives asked Jeremy Smith, "Do you suspect anything between Sam and Ashley?" Jeremy said, "No, I couldn't see it. I don't think he would ever do anything to harm her." Unfortunately for Sam Shelton, Ashley kept her friends in the loop. Those friends would say that she was romantically involved with Sam Shelton and would often meet at the park to play basketball together. The day she went missing, Ashley had made plans to meet him at the park. On April 28, 2006, Ashley had been missing for an entire night, and Ashley's mother, Michelle, was overcome with anguish as questions came flooding. Was Ashley cold? Was she suffering? Was she hurt? Detectives pulled the 26-year-old coach, Sam Shelton, from baseball practice at the high school he worked at and took him down to the station. At first, he was cool, calm, and collected, and says their relationship was strictly platonic. Ashley was obsessed with him, would not leave him alone, called him non-stop, and he had been avoiding her for days. Detectives confront Sam about statements made by her friends that Ashley and he were romantically involved. Sam changes his story and says that they did have intercourse and he felt horrible about going through with it, but they never kissed, as if that dismissed his wrongdoing. Sam changes his story again. This time, he reveals Ashley was in his car the day before. He says he was meeting her to break off the relationship and she lost it. Ashley refused to get out of his car, so he had to physically take her out. He closed the door and he left her on the side of the road as he drove off. Sam insisted Ashley was alive when he left her. After hours and hours of detectives questioning Sam, he does not stray from the last story he told. Then, during a restroom break, Sam runs into the lead detective, Stephen Johnson, who just happened to be an advisor at the time Sam Shelton was a Boy Scout law enforcement explorer. This detective then takes over the interrogation. Captain Johnson questions Sam for 20 minutes before he begins to crumble. He asks Sam what his grandmother would say if he went and told her the story Sam has given them. Sam says he just wants to go home and explain what happened to his mother and grandmother. Captain Johnson says to Sam, "Your grandmother's not here. Your mom is not here. But you know what? In a way they are, because everything they taught you, all the talks Grandma had with you, are within you. All of them are. And unfortunately right now, Sam, you ain't telling us the truth. And you need to. You have to. For Mom. For Grandma." Captain Johnson walks out of the interrogation room, leaving Sam Shelton weeping and allowing the guilt to sink in. Captain Johnson stated, "When he asked to be alone, I knew he was ready to confess." When the detective comes back into the interrogation room, Sam says he just has to show him what happened. He says he drug her to a wooded area in the park and tied something around her neck to make it look like someone had choked her where she was. Sam didn't just take her out of his vehicle. The part-time wrestler had put Ashley into a chokehold, dragged her out of his vehicle. He heard a loud snap. Ashley went limp and he panicked, realizing he had snapped her neck. He pulled her into the woods and strangled her with his bare hands. When he was done strangling her, he saw she was still breathing, so he strangled her again, only this time using his belt and foot for leverage, and pulled as hard as he could until the belt snapped. He then had to use his hands again and strangled her for a third and final time before leaving her in the cold and hard ground in the middle of the woods. Sam said in the interrogation that he had to look away as he strangled her because he didn't want to watch. He explains in excruciating detail what he heard, saw, and the color she turned throughout her horrific ordeal at the hands of Sam Shelton. He agrees to take detectives to the wooded area he had mentioned, but it was now dark, cold, and rainy, and Sam is having a hard time getting his bearings. After 30 minutes of walking, detectives are beginning to think Sam might just be playing with them. But then, their flashlights land on Ashley Reeves laying on the ground on her back with thousands of insect bites and obviously deceased. Or so they thought. Her chest rises and someone yells out, "She's breathing, get the EMTs." Another detective says, "Oh my God, we found her. She's alive." EMTs rush to save her. She's been left for dead for more than 30 hours by this point. Left by Sam Shelton in the dark of night, cold, rainy, and holding on to dear life as he went to a country bar and was caught on camera line dancing. You heard me right. Right after he did that horrific thing to that girl, he went to a country bar and danced the night away. Medical personnel knew her prognosis was not good, and the EMTs on scene told detectives she might not even make it out of the woods alive. Sam Shelton is arrested and charged with attempted murder. Shockingly, Sam makes bail and is released while awaiting trial and attempts to commit suicide. EMTs are called and Sam punches and spits at them, trying to prevent them from saving him. ER staff would say that Sam had written on his chest with a marker saying, "Do not resuscitate." Sam pleads guilty and is sentenced to 20 years in prison, which, if you ask me, is a light sentence for what he did. However, the 20-year sentence was a plea deal made with Ashley's family in order to prevent her from having to retell and relive the horrifying attack she had endured. Sam's projected parole date is April 22, 2024. As for Ashley, her recovery was a grueling one. She had to relearn how to eat, drink, talk, move her limbs, basically everything. Ashley revisited the site of her rescue in 2017 as part of a Crime Watch Daily episode. Ashley says to Elizabeth Smart, "It's kind of hard to believe that this is actually where I was for that long and in that condition. It makes me feel like maybe I am as tough as everybody says I am. I'm a fighter, and I just keep wanting to push myself harder and harder." She also says that sometimes she thinks to herself that she wishes she could remember what happened. But then she has another thought. Maybe that's not such a good idea. There is one thing she remembers very clearly. Ashley had met up with Sam Shelton to end their relationship, not the other way around. I would like to address something. These videos are not for entertainment. They are meant to keep the victims alive, and for those who have survived, give them empowerment to take back their lives and live it to the fullest. Let's never forget the faces of these monsters. Let's hope that when and if they get out of jail, they will know that we know what they did, and we will not let them forget it.